11,500 years ago, on a sun-scorched hilltop in what is now southeastern Turkey, something rose from the earth that had no business existing. Limestone pillars weighing as much as 10 tons, carved with foxes and vultures and scorpions, arranged in vast ceremonial circles. No metal tools cut them, no writing recorded them, no farming civilization stood behind them. And when archaeologists finally understood what they had found, they did not revise the textbooks. They threw them out. For decades, one question drove the fiercest debate. Who actually built this place? And how? Wild theories filled the silence. Then ancient DNA entered the record, and it did not answer the question the way anyone expected. Because the people behind those stones were not gods, not strangers, not a vanished master race. The truth had been lying in the ground the whole time, waiting to understand why this place shattered everything. Archaeologists thought they knew. You first have to picture it. Imagine a lonely hilltop near the modern border of Turkey and Syria. Dry grasslands stretch toward the horizon. There are no cities, no roads, no monuments. Then suddenly, rising from the earth, stand enormous T-shaped limestone pillars. Some reach over 5 meters tall. Many weigh several tons. They are arranged in massive circular enclosures, with two larger pillars standing at the center of each ring like silent guardians watching over a forgotten world. What makes them even more remarkable are the carvings: foxes, snakes, wild boars, vultures, scorpions. The animals seem to crawl across the stone surfaces with extraordinary detail. Some pillars even appear to have human arms and hands carved into them, suggesting they were intended to represent giant human figures. These are not crude scratches made by desperate survivors. They are works of art, and that creates a problem. Because according to the traditional story of civilization, the people who built this monument should never have been capable of creating it. The site, known today as Göbekli Tepe, dates back roughly 11,500 years. To put that into perspective, Stonehenge is around 5,000 years old. The Great Pyramids of Egypt are roughly 4,500 years old. Göbekli Tepe was already ancient when those monuments were built. Think about that for a moment. When Egyptian workers were dragging limestone blocks across the desert, this site had already been standing for thousands of years. Yet the people who built it supposedly lived before farming, before metal tools, before writing, before cities, before kingdoms, and before every institution we normally associate with advanced civilization. By every conventional measure, they were hunter-gatherers, and hunter-gatherers were not supposed to build monuments like this. That contradiction launched one of the biggest debates in modern archaeology. Ironically, the site nearly remained unknown forever. In 1963, archaeologists conducting a survey noticed the hill and recorded it. Then they moved on. The stones scattered across the surface were mistaken for ordinary remains from a medieval cemetery. For more than 3 decades, nobody realized what lay hidden underneath. Then, in 1995, German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt arrived. Almost immediately, he recognized that something was different. Excavations revealed massive carved pillars buried just beneath the surface. Then another enclosure appeared. Then another. Eventually, surveys suggested that at least 20 separate stone enclosures were hidden beneath the hill, most of them still unexcavated today. Schmidt quickly realized he was looking at something far older and more significant than anyone had imagined. But his most important discovery was not the stones themselves. It was what they implied. For generations, historians had believed civilization followed a simple sequence. First came agriculture. Agriculture created food surpluses. Food surpluses allowed people to settle permanently. Permanent settlements produced religion, monuments, governments, and eventually civilization itself. In other words, farming came first. Everything else came later. Schmidt proposed something radical. What if the order was reversed? What if people gathered together for shared beliefs and rituals first? What if the desire to build something sacred encouraged them to settle down and eventually develop agriculture? In Schmidt's view, religion did not emerge because civilization existed. Civilization emerged because people wanted religion. It was a shocking idea, and it left everyone asking an even bigger question. If these people were capable of building something this sophisticated, Who exactly were they? That uncertainty created the perfect environment for speculation. Theories exploded across books, documentaries, and the internet. Some claimed extraterrestrials were involved. Others suggested mythical beings such as the Anunnaki had provided advanced knowledge. Some connected the site to the Garden of Eden. Others argued it was evidence of a lost civilization that existed before the end of the Ice Age. Perhaps the most famous version came from writers who suggested a highly advanced prehistoric culture had been destroyed by a global catastrophe thousands of years earlier. According to this theory, survivors passed their knowledge to less advanced humans before disappearing entirely from history. It is an exciting story. The problem is that the evidence does not support it. In fact, nearly all of these theories share the same hidden assumption. They assume ordinary prehistoric humans were incapable of building Göbekli Tepe themselves, and that assumption turns out to be wrong. Long before DNA entered the conversation, archaeologists were already finding clues buried in the soil. One of the most important discoveries involved tools. Thousands upon thousands of sickle blades were recovered from the site. These tools are specifically associated with harvesting grain, not occasional gathering, systematic harvesting. Researchers also found grinding stones, mortars, and pestles used to process large amounts of plant material. The evidence suggested people were working extensively with cereals such as wild wheat and barley. Animal remains told a similar story. Archaeologists uncovered enormous quantities of bones from gazelles, cattle, and sheep. Many showed signs of large-scale butchering. The site appears to have hosted massive communal feasts, requiring significant planning and organization. Even the architecture challenged old assumptions. Some structures may have been roofed. Others resemble permanent buildings rather than temporary camps. The more archaeologists excavated, the harder it became to describe these people as simple wandering hunter-gatherers. Instead, they appeared to be communities standing at the very edge of a transformation, the moment when humanity was beginning to move from hunting and gathering toward agriculture. But archaeology could only reveal what they did. To discover who they were, researchers needed another tool: DNA. For centuries, the dead kept their secrets. Then ancient DNA changed everything. Scientists learned how to recover genetic material from human remains thousands of years old. Although usable genomes have not yet been recovered directly from Göbekli Tepe itself, researchers have analyzed DNA from nearby populations living in the same region during the same period. The results were surprising. Rather than revealing evidence of a mysterious outside civilization, the DNA showed continuity. The people living in the region were largely descended from earlier populations that had already been there for thousands of years. There was no sign of an advanced foreign group arriving suddenly. No genetic fingerprint of a lost civilization. No hidden population teaching local people how to build monuments. The builders were locals. Their ancestors had lived in the region long before Göbekli Tepe existed. The DNA matched the archaeological evidence perfectly. These communities were already becoming socially complex. They were organizing labor, managing resources, holding large communal gatherings, experimenting with plants and animals. In other words, the social foundations of civilization were appearing before agriculture was fully established. Klaus Schmidt's controversial idea suddenly seemed far more plausible. The social revolution may have come first. The farming followed later. And perhaps that is the most fascinating part of the entire story. Göbekli Tepe does not reveal superhumans. It reveals humans. People remarkably similar to us. People capable of imagination, cooperation, planning, and ambition. People who looked at an empty hilltop and envisioned something that had never existed before. Modern audiences often underestimate prehistoric humans because they lacked modern technology. But technology and intelligence are not the same thing. These people hunted dangerous animals, navigated vast landscapes, organized large communities, and moved stones weighing several tons using nothing more than knowledge, teamwork, and determination. They did not need advanced machines. They needed vision, and they had plenty of it. The final twist is that these people did not disappear. As agriculture spread across the Near East and eventually into Europe, many of their descendants spread with it. Their genes, their knowledge, and their innovations became part of the foundation of later civilizations. For millions of people alive today, they are not mysterious strangers from a forgotten age. They are ancestors. That is why Göbekli Tepe matters. Not because it proves aliens visited Earth, not because it reveals a lost super-civilization, but because it forces us to rethink what early humans were capable of achieving. This hilltop in Turkey represents one of the earliest moments when people came together to build something larger than themselves. A moment when imagination, cooperation, and belief combined to create something extraordinary. And with most of the site still buried beneath the ground, it may not be finished rewriting history. The people who built it needed no outside help. They looked at a bare hilltop, imagined something no one had ever built before, and then they built it.